Abortion activists would like you to think they are on the side of science and intellect. We should introduce them to our next guest, one of the speakers you'll see at the March for Life rally stage next week. Here is this week's Pro-Life Focus.
It's such an exciting time in the pro-life movement.
The March for Life rally stage is reserved for the top pro-life leaders.
Because of all of you and the many thousands who stand with us in marches like this all across the nation, life is winning again in America.
This year, you'll see the youngest speaker on the stage is one with an impressive resume and mind.
The sequence begins with 0 and 1. To obtain each next number, add the first two.
Ali Cavazos is a senior at Princeton University and president of Princeton Pro-Life. She'll be included in this year's 2019 lineup of March for Life speakers, which will also include conservative commentator and Harvard grad Ben Shapiro, bipartisan pro-life congressional speakers, and a former abortionist. The theme for this year's March for Life is unique from day one. Pro-life is pro-science. It's a natural fit for this chemical and biological engineering major. Tell us how science informs your pro-life views.
So this is a great question. And I think, through biology, we know that a unique human life begins during conception. And from that point onward, there's an entire human organism present. It's not just part of the mother, because the DNA is different than the mother's. And it's not just part of a whole person the way that my arm is just a part of me. It's an entire human organism. And this is what science tells us. What science doesn't tell us is what we should do with that information. But most people would agree that it's wrong to take innocent human life. So if we can just get people to see that this is human life, then we've already done a lot of the work at that point. I'm really happy that as someone coming from a scientific background and having that education that I get to, and having it from an Ivy League university, which is considered, one of the most elite universities in the world, I'm really happy that I can give that kind of scientific viewpoint and lend that support.
She won't be the only Princeton presence, as Ali's fellow pro-life club members will join her in carrying the official March for Life banner through the streets. The selection is seen as an honor, something they're not necessarily used to on their own campus. You have led Princeton Pro-Life as president for 2 years. Tell us about what it's like being pro-life at an Ivy League school.
Well, when it comes to the university, I get the impression a lot of times that the administration is more supportive of pro-abortion groups than they are of us. And I think that's how it is at many universities. But they do let us have a presence on campus, and they let us do our thing, and I'm very grateful for that. For instance, they actually let me show a film called Pro-Life Feminist, and they let us host pro-life speakers. And I've never had any issues in terms of trying to put on an event. So that's a really good thing. But the other thing is that it's also the case that pro-abortion groups don't always want to engage with us. For instance, it's actually the official policy of one of the pro-abortion groups here to never engage with the opposition, which would be us. And I've reached out to that group's leadership multiple times, and they've never been receptive to us. And actually, at one of their events, I tried to point out the disproportionate effect that abortion has on minority communities, which is something that I care about as a Hispanic. And the student just kind of told me, look, if you don't agree with us, you don't have to, without really trying to respond to what I was saying.
With this year's pro-science theme, the March for Life hopes participants can better respond to the false claim the pro-life movement is anti-science. It's a lie that Ali can easily disprove.
We're definitely not anti-science. New scientific advancements continue to inform us about the development of human life in the womb. For instance, we know that babies in the womb are capable of feeling pain some point well before they're due to be born, which is why anesthesia is routinely administered during fetal surgeries. So I think that science is a really helpful tool in pointing us toward the right thing to do, which is to treat unborn lives as fully human lives that are in need of our protection.
From Princeton to Washington, this impressive young woman will surely give us a speech to remember at next week's March for Life. Can you give us a preview? What are you going to tell the crowd?
I think you'll just have to wait and stay tuned and, wait for the march to hear exactly what I'm going to say. But I'm really hoping that my speech gets people to think about the experience of being human and the gift of life.